Night of the Farting Dead. When the apocalypse broke out, the world was thrown into chaos. The infected roamed the streets hunting for their next meal. Among the undead were zombies, walking corpses that feasted on the living. But there was one zombie that stood out from the rest, for reasons beyond his control. He was known as Carl, a former accountant turned zombie. He had been turned only a few days prior, but he quickly realized that something was different about him. He had always been prone to intestinal gas, but ever since becoming a zombie, his flatulence was beyond abnormal. It was constant, with no relief in sight. Carl knew that his flatulence was not normal even for a zombie. He couldn't go an hour without letting one rip, and the smell was unbearable. The other zombies avoided him like the plague, but the living were not so lucky. They would stumble upon Carl and immediately be repulsed by the smell. It was like nothing they had ever experienced before. One night, as Carl was shuffling through an abandoned city, he noticed that he wasn't alone. There was other zombies nearby, all groaning and moaning as they searched for their next meal. But there was something different about their moans. There was different pitches and lengths, almost like a song. Carl was intrigued. He had never heard anything like it before. He shambled towards the sound and soon found himself in a clearing with dozens of zombies. They were all moaning and groaning in unison, creating an eerie symphony. Carl joined in, letting out a long, deep moan. The other zombies turned towards him, surprised by his participation, but they quickly accepted him into their group, recognizing that his unique flatulence added to the harmony of their moans. The group of zombies continued their moaning, attracting the attention of a group of survivors nearby. They cautiously approached the clearing, unsure of what they were witnessing. They'd never seen zombies act like this before. One of the survivors, a scientist named Dr. Emily, was fascinated by the sound the zombies were making. She approached the group and quickly realized that Carl was the source of the strange flatulence sounds that added to the group's rhythm. She was intrigued by the phenomenon and decided to study Carl and his flatulence further. Dr. Emily took Carl back to her lab, where she ran numerous tests to determine what was causing his abnormal flatulence. She discovered that, unlike other zombies, Carl's internal organs were still functioning. His intestines were producing gas, but instead of passing through him like it would be in a living person, the gas stayed inside, slowly building up. Dr. Emily was fascinated by her discovery. She realized that Carl was unlike any other zombie she had ever encountered. Instead of being a mindless killing machine like the others, Carl had a level of complexity that had never been seen before. He was a scientific anomaly. As Dr. Emily studied Carl, she realized that his flatulence was not just a scientific curiosity. He had the potential to be weaponized. The gas was so potent that he could knock out a person in seconds, making it the perfect defense mechanism for the zombie horde. Dr. Emily knew that, with enough study, she could create a weapon that would make the zombies nearly unstoppable. But as Dr. Emily continued the experiments, Carl began to change. His flatulence was becoming more frequent, and the smell was becoming more noxious by the day. Carl started to become self-conscious about his condition, fearing that he was becoming a burden to the other zombies. One day, as Carl was lying in his cell in the lab, he let out a particularly noxious fart. The smell was so overwhelming that it knocked out several of the lab technicians in an instant. Dr. Emily rushed in wearing a gas mask and was horrified by what she saw. The gas that Carl was producing was no longer a weapon. It was a danger to everyone in the lab. Dr. Emily knew that she had to act fast. She quickly formulated a plan to rid the world of Carl's flatulence once and for all. With the help of the other survivors, Dr. Emily demolished the lab with explosive, trapping Carl inside. The explosion was heard throughout the city, and the other zombies stopped moaning for a minute, as if acknowledging the loss of Carl. Dr. Emily watched in horror as the building crumbled, knowing that an innocent life had been lost in the name of science. The world continued on after Carl's death, but the zombie apocalypse still raging on. But Dr. Emily never forgot about him. She realized that Carl was not just a zombie with flatulence, but a being with a unique personality and identity. In his own way, he had contributed to the world, even if it was with his flatulence. Carl, the zombie who brought harmony to the undead, would never be forgotten. To be continued. Please like and subscribe for more.